Alright, To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods. That is a really, really cool title that's kind of wasted on a mediocre book. This thing really blew up for a little while when it came out last year. And I did watch a couple videos about it, and I heard a little bit about it, but I don't know, it just didn't interest me that much, so I didn't check it out until a couple of weeks ago. And I kind of wish I had looked at it earlier, because the whole reason that the book was big was because it was controversial. Actually, maybe I don't need to put quotes around that, because it really was controversial. It was controversial for being a, now for the quotes, colonizer romance.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
Now, I will say, real quick, that the word colonizer, that's just something I don't pay much attention to when I see it on the internet, because it's like a word with real meaning and real utility, but the internet loves to overuse terms when they don't apply. And in this case, colonizer romance, it's not entirely inaccurate, but it is very much missing the forest for the trees. So here's the thing, To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods is 100% just generic young adult fantasy slop, okay? Like, you have seen everything this book has to offer about 50 billion times in the past 10 years. With the exception of the relationship between the two leads, I'll get to that in a minute, but it is, again, just very much just young adult fantasy slop. And that's part of why I wasn't really interested in it, and it's part of why I wasn't really sure if I was going to do a video on it until just a couple hours ago when I decided, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna say something about this. I don't know exactly how it'll fit into my schedule, but I gotta say something about it. It's about main character girl. You don't need to know her name. She's just main character girl. She's from a vaguely Chinese fantasy world, which has been invaded and occupied and colonized by a vaguely Roman fantasy world that came through like a magical portal thing, and now everything is terrible. Main character girl has like these really super cool, awesome magic powers that no one else has, but also she's a member of a like oppressed, downtrodden group of people, and she's like super poor and desperate and stuff. And also, she's from a super well-off aristocratic family, or at least they were a super well-off aristocratic family before the colonizers came. And then you have main character boy, who his name is Antony Augustus, because again, they're vaguely Roman, and he is a prince of this evil place, and he has a connection with her, not a magical connection, but like they meet up at one point, and he says to her, hey, I can help you out. You should come work for me. And then they start getting more attached, and she does like assassin shit, because like, again, what sort of book did you think this was going to be?
Shut the fuck up!
And there's also a rebellion brewing in the background, because what sort of book did you think this was going to be? And there's some like betrayals and not very good political scheming and maneuvering, because what sort of book did you think this was going to be? And so on and so forth. The author said in the introduction of this book that she was inspired to write some of this by her family's own experiences in Manchuria during the Japanese occupation. So that would be in like the 1930s and 40s, and I'm not going to go into detail here, but the Japanese did do some rather unpleasant things during the colonization of that part of China.
Ah! What the fuck?
But here's the thing, while, yes, the colonizing stuff is shown to be unequivocally evil, like it's just shown to be really, really bad on every level in this book, it is nowhere near the level of what the Japanese did in China, which, again, I'm not going to get into detail here because some of it is frankly disgusting, and like, I just don't want to talk about it, and plus YouTube would likely demonetize this video if I went into detail. But like, you know, at least if you showed that, sure, it would probably stray into grimdark territory, and people who are not really familiar with that era of history would probably think you were just making things up and exaggerating for the sake of, you know, being grimdark and being edgy. But no, it really was that bad. And I think if the author had leaned a little bit more into the horrific violence and suffering that went on in Manchuria and applied that to the book, then this might have stood out a bit more, but I guess that's just the chains of the genre that she chose to write in. Like, it is young adult, and this is actually young adult. You know, the protagonists are 19 and 20 years old, so, you know, they could do that thing that authors have been doing for a while where they pretend it's young adult and then have graphic sex scenes for some reason, but that doesn't happen here, and they also just don't have the graphic violence, so some of the colonization stuff, while it does hit hard, it could hit a lot harder, is what I'm saying. But as I said earlier, The thing that sets this book apart from its contemporaries, at least a little bit, is the relationship between the two leads, because main character girl and main character boy, yes, there is a romance between them. I don't think that really counts as a spoiler to say that. But their relationship is a lot more complex than that, because both of them are bad people and they do bad things, but they do bad things for different reasons. Like, main character girl does bad things out of desperation. You know, at the beginning of the book, her sister is addicted to opium. Get it? It's like opium. I really don't know why they would bother coming up with a fictional drug if you're going to give it a name that close to a real one, but whatever. Her sister is addicted to opium, and she's really poor, and she has no one else to take care of her, so she has to look after herself and her sister, so she, like, does steal and do other unpleasant things. And then, like I said, partway through, she meets up with main character boy, and she becomes an assassin, and she straight up does kill innocent people using her awesome magic powers. So while she's not a good person, you can kind of understand where she's coming from. And again, she's doing this out of desperation, and that doesn't seep through the page as much as it does in some other books I've read, but it does come a little bit close to that territory, you know? Like, if the author had refined it a little bit, I think that would have worked really well. And simultaneously, main character boy, Anthony Augustus, is also a bad person who, again, he has her work as an assassin to kill innocent people, and he does political schemes, and he backstabs and betrays people, but he does this all out of idealism, because he genuinely thinks that if he can come to power, if he can take over, then he can make things better. Now, that might sound like self-serving bullshit to some of you, and it's possible that it is, but this first book doesn't really explore it all that much, and honestly, if this were proper adult fantasy, I would probably say, like, okay, this is the setup for some interesting philosophical discussions and exploration of some more complex and morally gray ideas, so I would think maybe the sequels would cover that. But again, this is generic young adult fantasy. I don't think they're going to do that, at least not properly. And the relationship between these two leads, again, it's much more than just romance. At first, they kind of just need each other to achieve their own goals, and as time goes on, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here, but, like, again, spoiler alert, there's, like, betrayals and shit, because what sort of book did you think you were reading?
Shut the fuck up!
Their relationship is just much more complicated than simply they meet and fall in love, or they meet, they hate each other, and then they fall in love. And a big part of the reason why I was kind of hesitant to make this video was just that I don't have a lot else to say beyond that. You know, like, there's just not much to say about the world this takes place in. Most of the other characters besides the two leads are just there. You know, they either have no personality or they have one personality trait which defines them. The action and political maneuvering and everything isn't very good. I did think that the way the magic worked here was kinda neat, because the more people use it, the more they drain their own life force, and magic users will, you know, die very young most of the time, so I thought that was kinda cool, and you can tell every time main character girl is using it that it is hurting her a lot, so, you know, I thought that was neat. And I also felt that it made perfect sense that the colonizing Roman people were able to take over the colonized magic Chinese people, because at first it's mentioned that the Roman people have guns, right? And they don't go into a lot of detail about them at first, so I was just thinking they had, like, 19th century weapons. Like, I was imagining breech loaders, or hell, maybe even muskets or something, because, you know, there really should have been a little bit more detail at the beginning, is what I'm saying. Because later on we find out that, no, their weaponry is, like, fully modern. They have modern assault rifles, fighter jets, ballistic missiles, they have nuclear capabilities. Like, they are about on par with the modern real world in terms of weapons technology, at least. However, I did go on this weird mental tangent, because apparently the vaguely Roman magic people also still use hard currency. Like, they still use gold and silver for their money, and, like, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this because most of you won't care, but the economics and history nerd in me wants to go on about how you can't build your economy on hard currency like that and also have modern weaponry. Like, just because modern weaponry requires so many small complex parts and logistics that it really could only operate using, you know, a modern economic framework, and a modern economic framework really doesn't work with hard currency. Like, you kind of need either fiat currency or possibly paper currency that's backed by gold or something could also conceivably work. But like, the point is, it was just kind of a weird moment that most people wouldn't think about, but it's stuck in my mind.
Why are you the way that you are?
But yeah, to gaze upon wicked gods, for the most part, it is just aggressively mid. Also, the main story doesn't start until about halfway through, but I didn't have a good place to put that anywhere in this video. That's just bad pacing. And it's aggressively mid, or not even mid, just like mediocre, I would say, other than the relationship between the two leads. And that just makes everyone getting upset about it being a colonizer romance, that just makes it look really freaking silly. Because the colonizing is shown to be bad, and Antony Augustus is shown to not be a totally good person. Like, his relationship with main character girl, like, sure, there is some genuine affection there, and there is, like, genuine friendship and possibly something more there, but he's not a good person necessarily, and neither is main character girl. Like, they're both deeply broken, traumatized people who are forced into impossible circumstances by the world they live in, and just reducing that down to, oh, well, one's a member of a colonizing group of people and the other's a member of a colonized group of people, that means this book is problematic, is just really, really dumb. That's about it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. Don't forget to like the video, comment, subscribe, check out my merchandise, Patreon, channel memberships, all that stuff. Goodbye. Hi, how's it going? The video's not over yet. You see all these names here? These are my patrons. My $10 and up patrons are Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin, Brother Santodes, Carolina Clay, Chibs Ahoy, Jace Spades, Lexi Delorme, Lord Tiebreaker, Michael and Katie Hake, Mr. AR013, Proscriptions of Dwojang, Rovi, Sykes XS, Slumbering Jellyfish, Observing Outer Space, Tesla Shark, Toa Michael, Vevictus, and Wesley. Thanks to all of them. Thanks to all these other people. Those are my $5 and up patrons. And, you know, thanks to everyone who just watches the video this far. You're all great. If you want to get your name put on here, as well as get access to early videos and exclusive videos and things of that nature, then consider donating to my Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. And if that's not something you feel like doing, then just dropping a like on the video, commenting on it, subscribing to my channel, making sure to watch everything I put out, that's all great too. Or just, you know, check out my merchandise store. Please, I need to eat. Anyways, that's all. Goodbye.